Hello Internet, welcome back to another video, and in this one, we're diving into something a little more off the radar. We're talking about 10 new underrated anime that you might have completely missed. You know how every season gets buried under sequels, hype trains, and the same recycled tropes? Yeah, in all that noise, some genuinely cool shows slip through the cracks. So today, we're shining a light on the ones that didn't get the spotlight they deserved, whether it's because of quiet marketing, weird titles, or just plain bad timing. If you enjoy anime that do something a little different, whether it's a twist on a familiar genre, a quieter slice of life, or a total genre mashup, this list is for you. And hey, if you end up finding even one new favorite by the end of this video, then I did my job. Before we jump in, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share this with that one friend who swears they've seen everything. And when we're done, drop a comment telling me which show surprised you the most. Or better yet, leave "I'd clock out with Alina" somewhere in your reply so I know you stuck around till the end. Let's not drag this out any longer. Let's begin. Bruh. Let's start this list with an underrated gem that might have slipped past your radar. I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time. This one's not your typical fantasy adventure. It's what happens when corporate burnout meets dungeon crawling. The story follows Alina Clover, who signs up to be a receptionist at the Adventurers Guild, hoping for a stable 9-to-5 gig. What she gets instead? Chaotic adventurers, piles of paperwork, and unpaid overtime. Fed up, she secretly moonlights as the ultra-powerful executioner, clearing bosses in dungeons just so she can go home on time. It's basically work-life balance, anime edition, but with a divine warhammer. What really makes this one pop is how it plays with genre expectations. You've got this mundane, almost bureaucratic workplace setting right next to flashy action scenes, and somehow it works. Alina is painfully relatable. She just wants to get through her shift without dealing with someone else's incompetence. The comedy hits because it's grounded in real frustrations, and the fight scenes are a satisfying contrast to her buttoned-up day job. It's funny, fast-paced, and the animation, clean and expressive, especially during those sudden boss battles. Still, it's not perfect. The main joke, Alina soloing bosses in secret, does get a bit repetitive if you binge it, and the show stays pretty focused on her, so the side characters don't get much space to breathe. The stakes also stay relatively low. Don't expect epic world-ending plot twists here. It's more about the day-to-day absurdities than high drama. So why didn't this one blow up? For starters, it dropped during a season packed with big-name releases, and its office humor meets fantasy vibe doesn't scream mainstream hit. Plus, that mouthful of a title might have made people think it was just another cookie-cutter isekai, which it definitely isn't. But here's the thing. If you've ever worked a stressful job and wished you could just smash your way to freedom, this anime gets it. Alina's secret double life is both hilarious and cathartic, and the way it blends everyday struggles with fantasy action is surprisingly fresh. It's a fun, self-aware twist on the genre, and it might just help you laugh off your own overtime blues. Next up is a quieter, more grounded pick. I Have a Crush at Work. It's a slow-burn office romance that skips the usual drama for something more real and relatable. The story follows Mei Tanaka, a shy but hard-working office employee who's quietly crushing on her kind and outgoing coworker, Haruto. Nothing explosive happens here. No magical confessions or over-the-top love triangles. Instead, it's about small glances, awkward moments, and the inner tug-of-war between wanting to say something and staying silent to keep the peace. If you've ever tried to hide your feelings for someone at work, this one hits close to home. What makes it work is the honesty in how it tells that story. The romance feels like something that could happen in your own office. Mei's growth is subtle but meaningful. She slowly builds confidence in little moments, and you see how she starts letting herself hope. The setting also adds a nice rhythm. The cubicles, team lunches, and late-night deadlines create a believable backdrop for the characters to open up to each other. There's also a softness to the humor, just enough to lighten things without turning the story into a rom-com. That said, it's not for everyone. The pacing is slow and the show avoids big conflicts. If you're looking for dramatic twists or flashy romantic gestures, this won't deliver that. Some viewers might also find the side characters a little underused. They're there to support the atmosphere but don't leave much of a mark. So why didn't it get more attention? Honestly, it's the kind of story that's easy to overlook. It doesn't scream for your attention with wild visuals or intense cliffhangers. The promo didn't make a lot of noise either, and in a sea of louder romance anime, it got quietly buried. Plus, its realistic tone might have made it feel too plain to some at first glance. But that's also exactly why it deserves a chance. If you're in the mood for something low-key, intimate, and emotionally grounded, this show delivers. It's a quiet reminder that even the smallest acts, like remembering someone's coffee order or staying a little late to talk, can mean everything when feelings are involved. For anyone who's ever wondered if their office crush noticed them back, this one's for you. Now let's switch gears to something a little more whimsical. Welcome to Japan, Mrs. Elf. This one leans into the charm of cultural clash, but instead of your usual teen gets isekai'd, it flips the script. A dignified elf from a fantasy realm suddenly finds herself in modern-day Japan. The story centers on Alara, an elegant noblewoman from a magical world who ends up stranded in a busy Japanese city. No dragons, no epic quests, just vending machines, crowded trains, and the confusing beauty of convenience store snacks. Watching Alara try to make sense of Wi-Fi, chopsticks, and work-life etiquette is where this anime shines. It's gentle, humorous, and oddly cozy. What makes it work is the way it handles Alara's character. She isn't just a joke machine reacting to Earth stuff. She's proud, curious, and vulnerable, which makes her attempts to adapt feel sincere rather than gimmicky. The show plays up the humor without mocking her, and the slice-of-life vibe gives it room to slow down and explore the sweet everyday moments. Plus, the art is beautiful. The contrast between fantasy design and urban Tokyo is captured in a way that's easy on the eyes. But don't go in expecting big stakes or tight story arcs. The plot is pretty loose, and the humor leans on familiar fish-out-of-water setups. A few gags feel recycled, and if you're not into slow-paced, episode-by-episode exploration, it might lose you early on. There's also not a ton of tension. This is very much about the journey, not the destination. So how did it end up flying under the radar? A lot of it comes down to tone and timing. It's not dramatic enough to hook fantasy fans, and not quirky enough to draw in the typical comedy crowd. The release was quiet, and it didn't ride on a major franchise or hype train. Some folks probably scrolled right past it, assuming it was another isekai clone. But that's a mistake, because what this anime does really well is invite you to slow down. If you like soft, character-focused stories with a bit of fantasy seasoning, welcome to Japan. Mrs. Elf is worth your time. It's relaxing, funny in a laid-back way, and surprisingly heartwarming. Think of it like a comfort watch, something to unwind with when you're tired of loud battles and dramatic plot twists. Up next is something a little offbeat, but surprisingly relatable. The daily life of a middle-aged online shopper. This one doesn't have magical battles or time travel. It's just about a regular guy trying to find joy in his daily routine, and it's kind of perfect for that exact reason. The story follows Hiroshi Nakamura, a middle-aged office worker who finds his escape in late-night online shopping. Whether it's obsessing over limited edition merch, arguing with a customer support chatbot, or tracking a delayed delivery like it's a life-or-death mission, Hiroshi's adventures are small but oddly captivating. It's about the way little things, like finally getting that long-awaited package, can lift your whole day. What makes this show click is how grounded it feels. It's rare to see anime focus on older characters without turning them into punchlines or background extras. Hiroshi is awkward, kind of lonely, but also earnest and thoughtful in a way that sneaks up on you. The humor lands softly, it's never mean-spirited, and the show finds a rhythm in the simple things: meals, routines, and those tiny wins that keep us going. There's a surprising amount of heart tucked into each episode. Still, this one won't be for everyone. It moves slowly, with low-stakes plots and very little action. Some viewers might find it too uneventful or just not flashy enough. And if you're not into slice of life or don't relate to the middle-aged perspective, it might not grab you right away. So why didn't more people hear about it? It's probably because it doesn't chase trends. No big-name studio push, no dramatic hooks to shout about. And with younger protagonists dominating most of the anime scene, a show about a guy stressing over package tracking numbers just doesn't stand out in thumbnails. But if you're someone who finds comfort in the quiet side of storytelling, or if you've ever opened an app just to browse and somehow ended up deep into a shopping cart spiral, this one will speak to you. The daily life of a middle-aged online shopper is warm, funny, and low-key in the best way, like a slow cup of coffee on a quiet weekend morning. It's not trying to impress you, it's just here to share a little joy. Now let's pick up the pace with something darker and more action-heavy, Sword of the Demon Hunter. On the surface, it's your classic vengeance-driven fantasy, but it's got enough grit and emotional weight to stand out if you give it the time. The story follows Kaido, a swordsman with a tragic past who dedicates his life to hunting demons in a grim, war-torn world. After losing his family, he sets out with a legendary blade said to be powerful enough to slay even the strongest monsters. Along the way, he's pulled into deeper conflicts involving ancient powers, corrupt rulers, and shifting alliances that blur the line between hero and villain. The best part? The action doesn't disappoint. Fight scenes are intense, fluid, and often brutal, with just enough strategy to keep things interesting. Visually, the show leans into a dark fantasy aesthetic, moody colors, ruined landscapes, lots of atmosphere. But what really gives the series weight is Kaido himself. He's not just a brooding warrior. His moral struggles and complicated decisions give the story some real texture. You're not just watching him swing a sword, you're watching him wrestle with what vengeance actually actually costs. That said, not everything hits. If you've seen a lot of dark fantasy, some of the story beats might feel familiar. Revenge quest, legendary weapon, mysterious past, and the pacing can be uneven, especially in exposition-heavy episodes that slow the momentum. The side characters also tend to fall into predictable roles, and the villains, while menacing, don't always have much depth. So why didn't this one make more noise? Part of it is timing. It came out alongside bigger, flashier, dark fantasy titles with louder fandoms. It also didn't do much to push itself as different, so casual viewers might have just passed it by thinking it was another clone of shows like Demon Slayer or Claymore. But if you're into grounded, gritty worlds with sharp swords and characters who carry their trauma like a second blade, Sword of the Demon Hunter is worth checking out. It's a solid entry in the genre that may not reinvent the wheel, but it sharpens it just enough to leave a mark. Let's take a turn into something with a little more flair and folklore. Yaiba Samurai Legend. This one's got that classic samurai feel, but it spices things up with supernatural elements and a setting that blends history with myth. The story follows Yaiba, a fiery young swordsman trying to restore his disgraced clan's honor. His journey takes place in an alternate Edo-era Japan, where ancient spirits and magical forces influence everyday life. As he trains, fights rival warriors, and uncovers long-buried secrets, Yaiba starts to realize that the path to redemption is a lot more complicated and dangerous than just swinging a sword the right way. One of the show's biggest strengths is how it handles its setting. The combination of traditional samurai values with mystical forces creates a world that feels both familiar and fresh. The sword fights are dynamic, mixing grounded technique with supernatural flair and the cultural details. Everything from shrines to folklore spirits give the story some real texture. Yaiba himself is easy to root for, impulsive, determined, and just reckless enough to keep things interesting. That said, you've probably seen parts of this story before. It's very much a hero's journey, and a few plot twists are easy to see coming. The tone also jumps around a bit. It'll be serious and emotional one moment, then crack a joke that undercuts the tension. And while the villains look cool, they don't always get the development they need to feel like more than obstacles. So why didn't it take off? It hit during a time when a lot of anime were chasing either ultra-modern settings or fantasy epics, so a historical fantasy didn't make as much noise. The marketing was also pretty modest. No massive campaign, no big studio push, and for some viewers, the mix of period drama and magical elements might have made it hard to tell who the show was really for. But if you like stories with sword fights, spirit lore, and a main character who gets stronger the hard way, Yaiba Samurai Legend delivers. It might not be the most original on paper, but it makes up for that with energy, heart, and style. It's the kind of anime that scratches the itch for something adventurous and mythic, without going full dark or overly modern. Definitely a solid pick if you're craving some spiritual steel and samurai grit. Next on the list is a family-focused series with a supernatural twist, Shuinji Family Children. This one leans more into emotional storytelling than flashy spectacle, but if you're into character-driven drama with a touch of mystery, it's worth your time. The story centers around the Shuinji siblings, seemingly normal kids with very abnormal powers, all inherited from a mysterious bloodline. Each sibling has their own unique ability, but instead of turning the show into a super-powered free-for-all, it focuses on how these powers affect their daily lives, relationships, and responsibilities. There's sibling rivalry, emotional baggage, and external threats all tied up in one household that's anything but average. The biggest strength here is the emphasis on family dynamics. You don't just get action or slice-of-life moments. You get honest portrayals of how different personalities clash and connect. The powers serve more as metaphors for growing pains and identity struggles than plot gimmicks, and it gives the show a sense of depth you might not expect at first. There's a good balance of humor, emotion, and occasional bursts of supernatural conflict, all set against a grounded slice-of-life backdrop. But it's not flawless. Some episodes drag, especially the ones that lean more on family drama without pushing the plot forward. The villains are pretty flat, mostly there to push conflict, not to deepen the story. And while the sibling characters are fun, a few of them don't get enough screen time to really stand out, especially in a series juggling so many arcs. So why didn't this show get more attention? It's the kind of series that doesn't fit neatly into one box. It's not action-packed enough for shonen fans, not emotional enough to be full-on drama, and its slice-of-life pacing might turn off viewers looking for something with a bigger hook. Add to that a quiet release window and minimal marketing, and it's no surprise it slipped through the cracks. But if you enjoy stories that explore family bonds through a supernatural lens, something that mixes light powers with real emotional weight, Shuinji Family Children is a hidden gem. It's heartfelt without being overly sentimental, and its mix of grounded moments and subtle fantasy makes it an easy show to get attached to. Definitely recommended if you're in the mood for something quiet, reflective, and a little magical. Now for something completely out in space. I'm the evil lord of an intergalactic empire. But don't let the title fool you. This isn't about a power-hungry tyrant taking over galaxies. It's actually about a guy trying really hard not to be evil, despite what everyone around him thinks. The story follows Kale, a newly minted evil lord who inherits a vast empire full of corruption, backstabbing nobles, and endless bureaucracy. But instead of leaning into villainy, Kale's goal is to fix things, make the empire better, fairer, more functional. The twist? His good intentions constantly get misinterpreted as cold-blooded genius. Every time he tries to do the right thing, people assume he's being diabolical, and it somehow works in his favor. What makes this anime so entertaining is the constant disconnect between how Kale sees himself and how the world sees him. It's like watching a space version of a workplace comedy, mixed with light satire and political maneuvering. The world building is impressive too, with detailed planets, cultural differences, and enough lore to sink into. And while it plays up the absurdity, it also tackles some interesting questions about leadership and public perception. Of course, not everything lands. The plot can get tangled in its own political threads, and if you're not into sci-fi or don't care about power structures, some parts might feel like homework. The tone jumps between dry humor and serious drama, which can be jarring, and several side characters don't get enough development, especially when the story leans heavily on Kale's perspective. As for why this one flew under the radar, sci-fi anime already tends to be niche, and this one had the added hurdle of being tough to categorize. It's not a space opera, not exactly a comedy, and not full-on political thriller. It floats somewhere in between. Without a clear genre lane or massive marketing push, it just got lost in the shuffle. Plus, the title makes it sound way more generic than it actually is. But if you're looking for something different, smart, a little tongue-in-cheek, and full of accidental greatness, I'm the evil lord of an intergalactic empire is absolutely worth a look. It's fun to watch someone try to fix a broken system while the galaxy insists on seeing him as the villain. Think of it as a clever space comedy hiding inside an empire drama, and you'll have a good time. Let's move from the stars to the fantasy realm with a nostalgic twist in The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World. This one's for anyone who grew up on Sentai shows or superhero teams, but wants something a bit more grounded and surprisingly emotional. The premise is pretty straightforward. Takumi, once the proud Red Ranger of a popular superhero team, suddenly finds himself thrown into a medieval fantasy world. No team, no flashy transformation sequences, just a former hero trying to figure out how to survive from scratch. What follows is less about saving the world and more about rebuilding identity, because in this new place, nobody cares who he used to be. That's what makes this story interesting. Most isekai leads start overpowered or gain some ridiculous cheat skill. Takumi, he starts from zero. It's that struggle, learning how to be useful without relying on his past, that gives the show its emotional backbone. There's action, yes, but it's rooted in character growth. The world building is solid too, with unique regions, customs, and quests that feel lived in, not just decorative. But it takes its time getting there. Early episodes focus a lot on Takumi adjusting, and that pacing might turn off viewers who want instant adventure. It also hits a few familiar beats. You've probably seen redemption arcs and training montages like these before. Some of the supporting characters also lack depth, serving more as plot devices than real companions early on. So why was this easy to miss? It didn't have the loud hooks of other isekai. No big marketing, no gimmicky power fantasy, and blending superhero nostalgia with fantasy adventuring is kind of a weird combo that might have confused viewers about what they were getting. It didn't stand out on thumbnails, and in a season packed with high-energy competition, it got overlooked. But if you're someone who appreciates slow-burn character arcs, themes of reinvention, and a fresh take on familiar genres, The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World quietly delivers. It's not trying to wow you with spectacle. It's more about what it means to lose your role, and how to move forward when the world sees you as ordinary. For a story about a guy who used to wear a cape, it ends up being surprisingly human. Rounding out the list is To Be Hero X, which takes everything you know about superhero anime, cranks it up to 11, and then sets it on fire for laughs. This one is pure chaos, in the best way. It follows Riku, an everyday guy who suddenly finds himself with superpowers in a world packed with bizarre villains, eccentric allies, and the kind of logic that only works in a fever dream. But rather than taking the typical shonen route, To Be Hero X goes full parody. It's loud, absurd, and completely self-aware, constantly poking fun at superhero cliches, anime tropes, and even itself. The humor is the main draw here. It's fast, ridiculous, and sometimes borderline surreal, like watching a superhero skit show that never runs out of energy. The animation leans into that too. It's bold, exaggerated, and full of elastic expressions and visual gags. It never takes itself seriously, which is exactly why it works. If you're tired of overly dramatic hero stories, this is the perfect antidote. But that same style is also what might turn people off. The plot isn't really the focus. It's more of a backdrop for jokes and action. There's very little character depth, and the story can feel directionless if you're looking for a clear arc or emotional payoff. And because the comedy leans into absurdism, not every joke will land, especially if you're not a fan of over-the-top or crude humor. So why did it slip under the radar? For one, it didn't release on major platforms, so it missed a lot of mainstream attention. It's also a sequel of sorts, so new viewers might have skipped it thinking they needed to watch the original to be hero first, which honestly isn't a requirement. And its visual style and tone are so niche that it probably filtered out a lot of casual viewers on first impression. Still, if you're looking for something that doesn't care about playing by the rules and is more interested in making you laugh with sheer absurdity, To Be Hero X is a wild ride. It's the kind of show you throw on when you want to turn your brain off and just enjoy the ridiculousness. Not deep, not subtle, but definitely unforgettable. Last but definitely not least is Rock is a Lady's Modesty, a music-focused slice of life that trades glitz and glamour for something much more personal. It's about stage fright, identity, and what it really means to put yourself out there when the spotlight feels like a threat instead of a dream. At the center is Rico, a quiet, introverted guitarist with serious talent but no confidence. She's an absolute force on stage when she can actually get on it. The series follows her journey through the indie rock scene as she wrestles with anxiety, pressure, and the stereotypes that come with being a woman in a genre that doesn't always make room for vulnerability. It's not a rags to riches story. It's a story about growth, measured not in album sales, but in personal victories. What makes this one special is how raw it feels. The music scenes are fantastic, with performances that actually reflect the characters' emotional states, not just flashy soundtracks. Rico's arc is handled with care. Her struggles aren't played for drama, but explored with a quiet honesty that hits home. The show also has a strong sense of style, using lighting, color, and pacing to convey mood without needing to over-explain anything. But it's not the most accessible series. The pacing can be slow, especially in episodes focused on internal monologues or band drama. And while Rico shines, some of the side characters don't get nearly enough attention, which makes certain relationships feel underdeveloped. Also, if you're not into music-centric anime, this might not grab you right away. So how did this one slip under the radar? It didn't have a major streaming platform backing it, and its quieter, introspective vibe didn't make for punchy trailers or big social media buzz. Plus, with music anime being a pretty crowded space lately, it just didn't have the loud hooks needed to break through the noise. But if you're someone who connects with stories about self-expression, imposter syndrome, or just chasing your passion in a world that keeps trying to put you in a box, Rock is a Lady's Modesty is worth your attention. It's not flashy, but it's deeply personal, and sometimes that quiet kind of storytelling leaves the longest echo. Alright folks, that's it for this video on 10 new underrated anime you might have missed for today. We went through a whole lineup of shows that didn't get the spotlight they deserved, whether it was office comedy with secret boss fights, slow burn office crushes, middle-aged online shopping adventures, or chaotic space politics with a misunderstood evil lord. Some were heartfelt, some were hilarious, and a few were just plain weird in the best way. The point is, there's a lot of anime out there that won't show up on trending pages or fan polls, but still hit hard if you give them a shot. Hopefully you found something new to add to your watch list, or at least something that made you think, wait, how did I miss that? If you had fun with this one, go ahead and like the video, hit subscribe, and share it with that one friend who always claims they've run out of anime to watch. And hey, if you made it all the way to the end, drop a comment saying, Takumi still has Red Ranger energy, and let me know what other underrated anime you think people are sleeping on. Seriously, I love checking out stuff that flies under the radar. Alright, hope you enjoyed hanging out and discovering some hidden gems. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate you being here. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you later.